Hello everyone and welcome back to Powerful Nothing, a Magic the Gathering Cube podcast. I'm your host Dan, and on the internet is Too Sweet MTG, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host James. How's it going, man? You alright?
Yeah, it's going pretty good. Going to talk about some quite old Magic cards today.
These are older than I thought they were, but don't worry, we're going to have a spooktacular time today, because today we're going to be looking back at the original Innistrad block and its effect on Cube. There will be time codes down below if you want to jump around, because before we get on to our main topic, we have a little bit of news we want to touch on. So, announced this week, they've revealed the Magicon schedule for 2025. On February the 21st to the 23rd, we're going to Chicago. In June, from the 20th to the 22nd, we're going back to Las Vegas. And in September, from the 26th to the 28th, we are going to Atlanta. So, Magicons are a bunch of fun. We had a good time when we went to one this year, James. But as someone who doesn't live in North America, that schedule kind of sucks a little bit, I'm going to be honest with you. The announcement wasn't super clear if there's going to be a fourth one. I think the wording they used was, we look forward to joining Europe in the future, something like that. But they didn't kind of quantify if that was going to be in next year or the year after that. And obviously, it doesn't do anything for people in Southeast Asia or South America, where there is a big thriving, or both places where there are big thriving Magic scenes who have never had a Magicon. Yeah, that kind of sucks, but good. But to all the people who can make it and are going, I hope you all have an awesome time. And then also there was an announcement of what formats these Magicons are going to be, because obviously they have a Pro Tour attached to them. Two of them are going to be standard Pro Tours, and then the other one's going to be modern, which kind of begs the question, what does that mean for Pioneer? James, I know you've been dabbling back into a bit of Pioneer, because I think one of your... What is the card that you like? That is
Enigmatic Incarnation is my pet deck at the moment. Yeah. Although I think it's actually good. It's no longer my pet deck because it's too good to be a pet deck.
Oh, let's go. I love that. Okay.
Yeah.
But where does this leave Pioneer, do you think, James?
Yeah, that is kind of the question, right? And it's quite disappointing. I was disappointed in several aspects of this announcement, actually. But the no Pioneer PT is pretty frustrating, I think, because it felt like Wizards were just getting back into like a sort of fairly consistent rhythm of like vis-a-vis competitively supported formats. If you play these formats, there will be a PT. And I think having a bit of that consistency is actually quite important because, the reality is that a lot of players don't just go, oh, it's modern season for these RCQs, I'll buy a modern deck. Like that's not how people do it, right? They invest in format and then they enjoy playing, but with the knowledge that will also, at some point in the year, they'll be able to play that competitively, and they go through seasons, right? And for this season, Pioneer would be the competitively supported format. So I think for the people where Pioneer is the format for them, and they don't really play modern, and this kind of sucks. And doubling up on standard is, I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to bring standard back as being the primary competitive format, which I think it hasn't been for a long time. But the reality is that most people don't play standard anymore, certainly not on paper. It feels like standard has been, for a while now, majority an arena format and little else. Like, I don't know, if you go to FNM now, it's very rare you see anyone playing standard. So yeah, whereas Pioneer, I think, is really popular and it's also really good at the moment. Like, there's a lot of really interesting decks. There's a lot of diversity. Certainly in a much better state than modern.
Are you a bit biased because your deck's not good again?
I was amongst the interesting decks I was talking about. There was recently a Pioneer event, pretty big Pioneer event, won by Tree of Tradition combo.
Ooh.
If that can get you on board.
Okay, yeah.
The idea is you put it under an Agatha Soul Cauldron, and then your Lanoir Elves taps to make their life total 1.
Well, that's kind of wild. Okay, I like that. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
So yeah, that was a shame, I think, to not have a Pioneer PT. And all three in North America gone a long way from, play the game, see the world, or whatever the slogan used to be. I don't know, play the game, see America, I guess. This is a shame because it's, there's clearly a lot of people in other regions who want to go to these events, right? This isn't a this is where the demand is thing. The demand is all over the world. Like the MagicCon Amsterdam was huge. I suspect this is a symptom of like is just easier for them to arrange in America. But that feels really pretty short-sighted to me. Yeah, obviously, I'm complaining from a European point of view. We're still generally do better in this regard than South America or Asia, but
that's very true.
There's still, I think, a World Championships to announce, so maybe that ends up being Europe. But
they've said specifically that the Worlds is going to be a closed event, so it's not going to be at a MagicCon. But so there is still room for them to possibly announce something in winter 2025, or maybe even early 2026. That is kind of what people are at least kind of hopingly speculating for. But yeah, that's the thing. I know we're complaining, but yeah, like actually at Amsterdam, I was chatting with some Brazilian chaps, and I didn't know that so they never had a MagicCon, but also they stopped printing Magic product in Portuguese, which is wild.
Yeah. Yeah, that feels pretty unnecessary, doesn't it? Yeah. I mean, literally, the best players of all time, right? It comes from Brazil. There's a really big Magic scene in Brazil, massive, and it's it feels like you could give those communities something, Yeah,
MagicCons are fun. Would be nice to have one closer to us. Who knows? Maybe we should arrange our own type thing, James. I've been thinking, but that's something for another time, I think. So today, for our main topic, we're going to be looking back at the original Innistrad block. So that block was made of 3 smaller sets, something that's a bit, if you've only been playing the last couple of years, might be unfamiliar to you, but Magic sets used to be made up of 3 sets. So the block was Innistrad, which was released on September the 30th, 2011, which is 13 years ago. Dark Ascension was released in February 3rd, 2012, and Avatar Restored was released on May 4th, 2012. So that's a nice, 6-month window for 3 sets? That seems so reasonable. 3 sets over 6 months. Wonderful. And as a setting, Innistrad is probably one of the most popular of all time. There is something about that gothic horror environment that people absolutely love.
Yeah, no, I mean, Innistrad is a great 5/5. It's not a coincidence that it's been revisited since then as a plane. But I think the gothic horror is like a great way for Magic to do something a little bit different than the traditional fantasy fare of like orcs and elves and stuff, but in a way that still felt very sort of aligned with the vibe that Magic had as a game, right? It wasn't. It was much less discordant with Magic as a game than going to, for example, Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Like Cowboys, whilst it was cool, like that does not have the Magic vibe to me, whereas Gothic horror, I think, definitely does.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It really, it fit very well in with the Magic ethos, and kind of like, famously, it's also one of probably the most successful like top-down sets they've ever done, where basically they had the idea of the plane first and worked down, rather than like some sets are like, we have this idea for some mechanics, let's go upwards. Like War of the Spark, they kind of worked upwards from doing a Planeswalker set, whereas this is very much they wanted to do a bunch of ideas from like gothic horror and like horror movies, and then kind of work the mechanics and cards from there. And the set is absolutely full of horror tropes and legally distinct or public domain characters. Like you have things like the Invisible Stalker is the Invisible Man. You have humans that transform into werewolves. Screeching Bat is a bat that turns into a vampire. Cloistered Youth is a young girl possessed that transforms into a demon, like from The Exorcist. Delver of Secrets, and I can't believe there hasn't been a secret layer of this yet. Delver of Secrets is a scientist that turns into an insect like the film The Fly. We already have a Jeff Goldblum card. Why is there not a Fly card? And then there's literally like a pitchfork as an equipment in the set. Like it's so chocked full, dripping with flavor, that I think it's always just really appealed to players.
Yeah, for sure. I think it was a real like win for Magic design. I think it was slightly before I started playing, but I remember like when I started playing, going and looking at these cards was really like, okay, yeah, I really got what they were going for here. I think the whole design of the set actually works really well. Both in a flavor sense and a gameplay sense.
No, 100%. And kind of one of the weird things I found out when researching this set a little bit more is that Mark Rosewater described it as a fixed homelands, which is a if anyone's ever opened a homelands booster pack in a Chaos draft, you'll know that kind of you have maybe one of the worst sets of all time and maybe one of the best sets of all time. So describing it as homelands is selling it short, because in terms of gameplay, Triple Innistrad is widely regarded as one of the best drafting formats of all time. And that's one of the reasons I'm going to be talking about the set today, just how good it was, and also how many cards it gave us and archetypes it gave us for Cube. I did mention Triple Innistrad there. For those unaware, what that meant is when the set was first released, when you drafted this, you drafted 3 packs of Innistrad. As the subsequent sets were released, you adjusted the amount of packs. So I think when Dark Ascension came out, I think you drafted the first pack, Dark Ascension, then 2 Innistrad packs afterwards. And then it did kind of change from set to set. I think with Innistrad block, you drafted Triple Avacyn Restored as a draft format.
Honestly, I think it was a great decision for Magic to go away from drafting blocks as a mixture of sets. I think you look back and all of the best formats were always the single set ones, right? Like Triple Karns was great. Karns Fate Reforged was miserable. Like, I'm sure Dark Ascension draft was fine, but it's certainly not a all-time classic in the way that Triple Innistrad is.
Yeah, I think it's just basically also made things just more consistent, because like they don't really miss with draft sets anymore. Like, some are kind of less fun than others, and like there'll be like personal biases. Like, personally, I didn't really like Bloomburrow, but I know some people loved it. But kind of like, you don't get as many just kind of just like or bad play experience sets anymore. They very much got their rhythm going. They have their routine down, and kind of like, yeah, when you kind of effectively with Innistrad, you have the main set, which is Innistrad, and then you have kind of like sets that are kind of watering down the mechanics a little bit. You don't see cards in like a deck you might like in the main format isn't going to work in the watered down one a little bit. But we are going to talk about the whole block because of how flavorful it was, and also just, I'll be honest with you, like I know like the internet isn't that high on Avacyn Restored, but Avacyn Restored has some utter bangers of cards in it. So we're kind of grouping the whole block together today to kind of talk about how those cards have affected Cube and how the set as a whole has affected Cube, and also the way we cube, because you might not realize it, but Innistrad might be one of the more impactful sets for Cube in terms of things it has inspired players to do outside of just regular high-powered cubes or cubes that we know and play online, that kind of thing. So let's talk about some of the mechanics and their impact before we talk about individual cards. So probably the biggest type of cards that Innistrad block introduced was flip cards, or cards that transformed. So we're talking about things like werewolves. We're talking about like things like Screeching Bat, like Delver Secrets, like we mentioned. This was the first time, I'm pretty positive, that a Magic card didn't have a Magic card, like the Magic card back, like a playable card didn't have that on it. Basically, that was printed into a standard set, and that's quite a big deal. Like in the packs, you had the checklist cards, which they still use today. And just from a flavor point of view, things transforming into stuff, there is like that just feels right. Like from a gothic horror top-down point of view, like human on one side, werewolf on the other side. I get that. That makes sense. Like, yeah, I love flip cards. There's so much design space with them. I like when they're with restrained, and it's not just like a wall of text on one side and a wall of text on the second side. But like this was like when you look at a werewolf card, you get it immediately. It just works.
Yeah, no, really, really big design win. And I think like quite a big design risk at the time, right? Like, it's very, very new to have, not a real Magic back. There's some annoyance with like drafting, right? Or like revealing the other side of your cards when you open the packs. So there will have been there were downsides to this, definitely, right, from a mechanical gameplay point of view. And consequently, there will have been people who were really mad about it at the time. But I think the upside of this was definitely worth it, because they had kind of tried to do transform cards before, right? With the
the Kamigawa ones.
The Kamigawa ones, where you sort of turn the card upside down and have different rule text, and they're awful. Like, I mean, not as in like the things the cards do are awful, but like they're really hard to read, and because you only have like one thing of art, and it does not capture the flavor of transforming at all, because you're still limited to what the size of one Magic card, right?
Yeah, I guess the flavor of like rotating upside down, that doesn't feel like you're not doing, like, it doesn't feel as special as turning the card over and revealing it. That just feels better.
Yeah, and because you can't have another side's worth of art as well, right? So I think those were certainly a really big win, and now it feels like most sets almost have some sort of flip cards, right? Even if not necessarily like at common, but
Yeah, they're not as. I think as printing processes have got better, they're able to put like a couple more in sets. Like I think there's like they tend to not just put one or two in a set because effectively that's his own sheet. Like I know when they printed the Planeswalker Spark Nicol Bolas, the one that on like Nicol Bolas the Ravager on one side and it flips into a Planeswalker. That was the only flip card in the set, and that was effectively like there is a sheet of just Nicol Bolas. That's how they had to do that. Whereas everything else, it's you have a sheet for the flip cards, and that's generally where you tend to see these sets is when they kind of commit to doing a whole cycle or like a whole bunch of them. But like one thing that the cube from a like flip card point of view, in terms of specifically these cards, like I love original Innistrad, and I'm so furious with the later sets where effectively they changed the werewolf mechanic. Like in the early day, or in Innistrad, it's the general werewolf text is on the front side is at the beginning of each upkeep, if no spells were cast this turn, you transform the card into a werewolf. The backside is generally a bigger creature, it's a more impactful threat. If it has an ability, generally it has a better version of that ability on the backside. But then when it's flipped, it can transform back by at the beginning of each upkeep, if a player casts 2 or more spells, last turn, transform it. And basically that actually kind of gets harder as the game goes on. There was something of kind of, they were trying to make it feel like nighttime was getting longer, that kind of thing. But like, that is relatively neat. It's much neater than like Daybound, Nightbound, and I'm so angry that the two mechanics do not line up. Like not just from a like it would be cool in Commander point of view. Like I tried this in Cube, and like some of the transform cards are very cool. Like Huntmaster of the Fells, like it's probably been pushed out now, but for a while that was like a decent Magic card. And just them splitting the mechanics. I have a note that says "give out" about the new werewolf rule change. We'll get over that, but like, yeah, I'm.
Yeah. Daybound Nightbound is. I think actually what Daybound Nightbound is it's a symptom of them designing for online play rather than paper play, right? Because so for those who aren't aware, Daybound Nightbound is a sort of very similar mechanic for flipping werewolves, where if you cast no spells, it becomes night, and if you cast 2 spells, it becomes day again. But the really infuriating thing about it is even when there's no werewolves in play, you have to keep tracking it.
Yeah, once you've played a card with Daybound Nightbound, you are tracking it for the rest of the game.
Yes, yeah. Even if there's only one card with this mechanic in your cube, and there might be like, and even if you're playing casually, it's like, well, I might be able to get it back at some point, so I still kind of need to keep track of this thing. But it's because it's quite difficult to, if you get it back 10 turns later, it's not always easy to go and work out if it's meant to be day or night, right? So it's it's a real nightmare for paper play, and I've kind of just got on board with cut all the Daybound Nightbound cards, even though some of them are kind of cool because they're just obnoxious.
Yeah, some of them are cool. Like Tollivar's Huntmaster is a great green creature. Avonbrook Caretaker is a house. There's a black one as well. But like anyway, that's the new Innistrad. We're not talking about that. Like I think in this set anyway, they really nailed the flip cards because like from a mechanics point of view, I think it worked very well. And then from a flavor point of view, as we kind of mentioned, you have things that turn into things. That is just like a lot of horror, a lot of body horror is something turning into something else, transforming into the monster, that kind of stuff. Like I'm pretty positive there's like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde reference in this set, that kind of stuff. There's like, there's like Unruly Mob as well, something like that, which is like I think it's like it's one person that flips into it's a one white person that flips into an angry red mob, and that's just kind of like those kind of things are just perfect.
Yeah, the big gameplay interaction to be aware of with the old ones. There are some bangers. I like Master of the Fells. I think it's decent. But if your plan is to like pass your turn and flip your werewolves, so you don't cast a spell on your turn, so you flip your werewolves. The way the old ones work, which the new ones don't, you if your opponent casts a spell in your end step, your werewolves don't flip. So you do have to be very aware of when you can not cast any spells in order to try and flip them. But no, I think it was a cool mechanic, right? Because they're mostly like non-flash creatures, but they really encourage you to put instants in your deck because you want to be able to not cast spells on your turn and then use your mana on your opponent's turn. Yeah, I thought it played really well.
Yeah, I love the old werewolves, and actually, you reminding me of the Flash stuff makes me slightly more angry because I remember when the set with Daybound Nightbound came out, probably the last time we went back to Innistrad, I built like a whole, like I had a werewolf thing in Gru, I had a flash thing in Simic, it was going to be sick, and then just like Daybound Nightbound is just irritating. So
yeah. I mean, it is actually, to be fair, it's almost less irritating if there's more of it, right? Because
true, it's
like,
just worthwhile.
I remember it
doing
not
that,
being irritating at all in actual Shadows over Innistrad Limited, because then it's like most games where like at most points in the game there's a werewolf in play, so it's just a thing you're keeping track of anyway, so it's not an issue. But like the annoying thing, right, is that when in the whole cube there's one like disenchant werewolf dude, and then you have to keep track of it for the whole game.
There is no way I'm putting Daybound Nightbound back in my queue, but I'll give it some more werewolves back in for vibes. Let's keep talking about mechanics. Another one that kind of I quite like and has kind of got a bit better recently because there's a bit of combo potential with it, and that's the Undying mechanic. That's basically if a creature dies, if it had no +1/+1 counters on it, return to the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. And kind of, this is always like a decent value-y style of mechanic. It's kind of like the opposite of Persist. And there's a bit more combo potential with Persist because there's stuff that puts counters on stuff when it comes in. But like Undying cards with things like Yawgmoth, Grand Position.
You need 2 Undying creatures is the joke, because you sack one, it comes back with a +1/+1 counter on it. And then you sack the other Undying creature to put a -1/-1 counter on the one with a +1/+1 counter on it. And the way Magic rules work is that +1/+1 and -1/-1 counters cancel each other out. And it has no counters on, then you can sack it again and keep going and draw lots of cards.
That's pretty sweet. But yeah, like it's kind of like we've seen Persist and that kind of stuff over a couple of sets, but we haven't really gone back to Undying. But it does seem like quite a flavorful effect that kind of, again, people get the gist of it. Kind of, you read Undying, it kind of makes sense that it's coming back. So I would go see Undying. Like, there was a Witch King from a Lord of the Rings ancillary product that has Undying, which is kind of vibes. But
there's the Mikaeus has some good like janky combo stuff going on that you can do.
Are you talking about Mike Trike, James? Mike Trike is not janky. That is one. So that in my first year of playing Commander, that won me so many games, and then I stopped playing those cards.
Yeah, no, but it's not janky in Commander for cube standards. It's reasonable, janky. Yes. I would argue. Like,
yes,
it is. I think whenever you try and put Commander combos in cube, they're janky, right?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. But no, so Mikaeus is a 6-mana 5/5 that gives other non-human creatures you control Undying. So with things like Walking Ballista and Triskelion, where you can remove counters from it to deal stuff damage. Effectively, the loop is you take the last counter off, you ping your opponent. I think with
I hadn't actually thought about Walking Ballista. Yeah, you're right. That's not very janky, is it?
I'm pretty positive away from that, but that's kind of vibes. Yeah.
That seems really good.
All right, Mikaeus going in the next update. That's kind of fun.
Nice.
But then another mechanic that I've tried a couple of times, and as time goes on, I think this will make more of a splashing cube. It just needs more cards, and that's Miracle. It's been like it basically got Sensei's Divining Tops banned in Legacy. The Miracle's a mechanic where basically if it's the first card you draw each turn, you can reveal it, and it's generally a overcosted effect like a board wipe or a damage spell or an extra turn spell. It's kind of like an overcosted effect, but if you reveal it this way, the miracle cost, it's a miracle you've drawn it, basically. That's the gimmick, but it's a much reduced cost. So kind of like you can miracle an extra turn spell and pay 1 blue to take an extra turn, that kind of thing. Like in environments where you can control the top of your library, miracles can be very strong. But the issue with Cube, I think, with that is that there hasn't been just like, they have gone back to miracles very sparingly, basically.
Yeah, I think, honestly, I think there are some really powerful miracle cards. I think the issue isn't a lack of miracle cards, it's a lack of ways to set them up, which don't suck. Like, there's Brainstorm and there's Top, and then
Roll Rat.
And then there's Jace. Jace is good, but then
4 or 5, you might cube, but yeah, I see that.
Yeah, and it's not like, you're just not going to be able to get a density of them in your deck, right, to actually make these cards work. Like, miracles, when it's actually a miracle, when it works, is not how you want to build the deck, right?
No.
And I think that's mostly how it is in Cube. You can do some cool stuff with like what's it called, Mystic Sanctuary as well. Putting the Miracle Time Walk on top with that can be quite good.
That's pretty fun. Yeah.
But yeah, it's and I guess there's some good miracle creatures now, right? Like Metamorphosis Fanatic and the Stupid Angels. So maybe you could do a similar thing with the black version. Is it Witch's Cottage? Does that put a creature on top?
Maybe. What, from your graveyard or?
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I like that.
I might be making that up though, so I'm gonna.
No, there are definitely lands that put a creature back on top of your library.
Yeah. Witch's Cottage. Yeah, it's a black Mystic Sanctuary that works for creatures instead of spells, basically.
Pretty cool. But yeah. I like Miracle. I think maybe one reason it hasn't come back is because if you aren't doing like the scroll racky thing where you're actually controlling it and kind of just setting it up, I can see how just getting Bonfire the Damned out of nowhere can kind of suck. Like it kind of, I guess to an extent, all you've done is put it in your deck. Your opponent feels like like the feel bad of like, they drew the exact right thing at the right time. Imagine that, but like times 10. That's probably how other people feel about Miracle. But like I think it is a cool mechanic, and like, yeah, give us a few more effects like this and a few more things. I could see it coming back into my cube. Like Miracles is something I have tried, like a blue-white version.
Yeah.
I think like Scroll Rack and Land Tax is kind of cool, but that's a separate thing for another time, I feel. You draw 4 lands, scroll rack the 4 lands, draw 4 cards. That's fun.
Yeah, I like Land Tax. And there are just cool interactions with Miracle as well. Like it's really nice that if you can draw a card on your opponent's turn and you draw your Miracle card, you can play it at instant speed when you draw it, which is nice. Like even if it's a sorcery, which is instant speed Terminus or instant speed Entreat for Angels for some of the originals is really good. Yeah, it is. I think an archetype that would be really cool if you could get it to work. But yeah, maybe it's just you've got to work a bit harder for those enablers.
The next mechanic I'm going to talk about is Flashback. And while this was originally printed back in like Odyssey, I feel it was kind of honed into more what we think of it nowadays in Innistrad. Like Innistrad is more of a graveyard set than both Odyssey and I think it appeared in Time Spiral as well. But like it just the Flashback stuff feels more at home in a graveyardy kind of set, and I think it just works really well here. There's some really cool cards in this set. Things like Unburial Rites is a great card for Cube with Flashback. And obviously Spider Spawning, which we'll get onto. We're going to spend a bit of time talking about Spider Spawning in a bit, don't worry. But like, yeah, Flashback is probably one of my favorite mechanics of all time. Like the amount of times I just search for cards with Flashback to look to go index is kind of wild, actually. But yeah, I love Flashback. Give us more of it. I think it works really well here, and it's not surprising that we've kind of seen it again in follow-up Innistrad sets because it's kind of just become synonymous with it now.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's really nice that it just gives you stuff to do later in the game, right? Without costing you much up front. And I think it's good having some of those mechanics where it's like, I have this value stored up and you can see it, so your opponent can plan around it. So there's a bit of agency there, right? That these things are coming. And I think it just makes for really interesting games.
I reckon I probably gained thousands of life with Naught to the Bone, James.
Yeah, in my lifetime.
That's the 2 and a green instant you gain 2 life for each creature card in your graveyard with Flashback to 2 and a green. I reckon it's thousands at this point. This is in like my first ever self-millie commander deck, and yeah.
I can certainly believe that out of everyone I've ever met, you have gained the most life with Naught from the Bone.
I'm proud. Oh, love it. And then the last kind of mechanic we want to touch on is it's sort of a mechanic, but it's more of a theme actually. Or it's part mechanic, it's also part theme, and that's kind of like the typal matters stuff in the set. Like over the block, it kind of mainly supported things like vampires, ghosts, werewolves, zombies, and humans. Like you very much got the vibe of kind of like the humans against the monsters, that kind of thing. There was like removal spells that.
Victim of Night was black for destroy target non-vampire, non-werewolf, or non-zombie creature. It's been very much supplanted since original Innistrad block, but for a while it was like you'd see this card crop up occasionally in Modern for the decks that could make black because there was a lack of sort of fairly unconditional removal, and there was always a bit of a gamble of there'd be like one vampire in the format you were really scared of, and it'd be very frustrating when this card couldn't kill it. But yeah, those but yeah, on the title stuff, like Innistrad gave us a lot of the really good typal payoffs that you still see cropping up in cubes today, like the Stormkirk Captain, for example, like really strong Vampire Lord. This, I think, was pretty much the first set where spirits was a thing, right? Like all the good spirit lords came from this set, or the subsequent Innistrad set. And some great zombie lords as well. So yeah, there's some good stuff going on here.
Yeah, some utter bangers. On the topic of bangers, let's talk about some individual cards that have kind of... There's so many impactful cards from this set. They're kind of, we want to touch on them and just kind of basically just reminisce and talk about how cool these cards are. This isn't as much of a set review, it's more of a love-in, basically. But first up, I'm pretty positive you will have cast this card a hell of a lot more than me, but I know how powerful this is. First up, let's talk about Snapcaster Mage. So for those unaware, it is 1 blue for a 2/1 creature human wizard with flash, and when it enters the battlefield, target instant or sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. The flashback cost is equal to its mana cost. So there's just so much you can do with this card. Just giving any spell in your graveyard flashback is kind of nuts. Like the old modern line of Bolt, Snapcaster, Bolt is still pretty good. That's 6 damage, and you're threatening with them with this. And also, I've lost to games where people beat me down with a Snapcaster Mage, and these are things that can happen. But yeah, it's just so versatile. Like there was a period of time where in higher power level cubes, this was obviously you have your power and you have your premium like lands and fixing. This was a very high pick because like in high powered level cubes, this lets you cast your Time Walk again. This lets you cast your Ancestral Recall again. There's a lot of, like, in Cube, we are playing, in theory, the best instant and sorceries in all of Magic, and Snapcaster Mage lets you cast them twice for just 2 mana on top, and you get a body that can block. That's kind of wild.
Yeah, I love Snapcaster Mage in Cube. I think it's in some ways this is kind of a perfect Cube card because it goes in a lot of different strategies, right? But you still have to do a bit of work. You have to, once you have a Snapcaster Mage, you are valuing other cards slightly differently, right? You'll really want to pick up those, especially the very cheap 1 or 2 mana instants and sorceries. So your Ponders, your Preordains, your Lightning Bolt, your Mana Leak. And it's very powerful. There's no cube where Snapcaster Mage is not good enough. It's an absolute house in the Mikko Vintage cube. But it's never too good, I think, for almost any cube, right? It never feels oppressive because it scales with the power level of the other cards in the cube. Yeah, love Snapcaster Mage. No bad words to say about it. Also, just interesting gameplay decisions, right? Like, I think one thing that people often don't do enough is when are you meant to play your Snapcaster Mage for no value and block?
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I hate playing Control, James. I have lost against a mono red deck where I was like, fine, it's fine. I don't need to block this Rebel Master. It's fine. Don't worry about it. And then I'm dead.
yeah, you are. Yeah, no, absolute all-timer. In fact, I was playing a vintage deck online the other day with Snapcaster as one of the primary win conditions. It was great.
What, beatdown, James? Really?
Yeah, well, it was standstill. So you just...
Oh, my God.
So you cast a standstill, and if you got a Snapcaster in play, then you're ahead on board. So your opponent is advised to break standstill.
Yeah, Snapcaster Mage. Versatile, I guess that's the thing. And yeah, like it's kind of held its value. Like the original one, like you can probably get like an older battered one for about like $15-$20, that kind of thing. But because it's just played and everything, it has held its value. Like yeah, if this was printed into Oblivion, it would be played in probably every cube that could run it because as you correctly pointed out, it does scale to the power level of the cube. Like it itself is not taking the extra turn. It's just facilitating stuff that's already there. So yeah, very, very, very cool card. Our next one is not Lillian of the Veil, as I've written.
That made me chuckle, actually. Lillian!
Next up, we're going to talk about Liliana of the Veil. It is 1 black for a legendary planeswalker Liliana with 3 starting loyalty. It has a +1 of each player discards a card, has a -2 of target player sacks a creature, or a -6 of separate all permanents target player controls into 2 piles. That player sacrifices all permanents in the pile of their choice. After this was printed, for a long time, this was one of the most powerful planeswalkers just around. Like, it comes down, it can rip apart your opponent's hand while ticking up, and if they can't, and it predicts itself very well by making them sack a creature. James, have you ever ultimated a Liliana the Veil, or had it done against you?
Oh yeah, I feel like it's happened to me more than I have done it to other people.
Yes,
but maybe that's just because I remember more the pain when it happens to you. It's a threatening ultimate. When they can play a Liliana onto an empty board and just start plussing it, you're feeling the heat for sure.
And there is kind of like a fourth mode of this card where you can just leave it. There is a world where you don't want to discard your card, and there is a world where you don't want to -2 it. The fourth mode is a 0 of do nothing, keep your Liliana around at parity. That is the unspoken fourth mode of this card. But
yeah, +0, you get to keep your hand.
Yeah, exactly.
Lily's a really good walker. It's I'd say like maybe showing its age a little bit at this point. Not in that I don't think it should go in cubes, just that it goes in slightly fewer decks than it used to. Like this to me used to be like the sort of definitive mid-rangey planeswalker, right?
Yeah, Jund, Abzan, adjacent, grind value.
Exactly. And now mostly if I'm putting Liliana in a deck, it's because I want to put cards in my graveyard. Whether that be Reanimator or just like the other synergistic graveyard stuff. Just because I think the curves getting lower and the cheap creatures being more explosive in cube has
and more than 3 power.
yeah.
Just bigger.
There's more haste. I think the mode of on turn 3 I get to play my Liliana, edicts your creature, and then start plussing my Liliana is it just doesn't pan out as often as it used to. But it's not to say it's a bad card. It's still, I think, quite strong in that. Sometimes that does go up, but also it's the times you plus it and discard your Archon and then reanimate it, that's great because you're not paying a big cost to put this card in your deck. It's a fine card that also lets you put cards in your graveyard. And most cubes have some amount of graveyardy stuff going on. And this is like a way to enable that with an already strong interactive value card rather than having to put some sketchier Putrid Imp style discard outlets in, right?
I love Putrid Imp, but that's the thing. Like, Liliana Veil is still in the Miko Vintage cube. It's still in LSV's cube. It's a very powerful card, but I do see it now. I see what you're saying in terms of like it's therefore like you want a little bit more synergy rather than just like raw power level for this anymore, because like from a raw power level point of view it's getting kind of crept on. But if you can synergize with it, discard a big thing or madness something out, that's also fun. That's kind of where Liliana gets a little bit spicier. Let's move on to one for the mono white fans out there. Let's talk about Thalia, Guardian of Thraben. This one actually came from from Dark Ascension. This is 1 white for a 2/1 legendary creature human soldier with first strike, and non-creature spells cost 1 generic more to cast. So this is kind of like is this the Death and Taxes card, James? You're taxing, in theory, your opponent's decks, stopping them from casting instant sorceries and artifacts, while you're also just putting a good threat down on the board on curve, and then you're following it up effectively with more creatures. And then if you do need to remove something, you're in white, so you can paying 2 mana to path their big blocker isn't the end of the world, but stopping a spells-based deck from kind of going off is very, very impactful. Like, Thalia is probably one of the premium, or it is still to this day one of the most premium white aggressive creatures. Like, even as like creatures have got bigger, even as we're seeing like more like things that put counters on things every combat, like there's still a space, there's still definitely a place for Thalia in the highest power level of cubes. And also because of all the reprints, it's also nice and cheap. You can probably pick one of these up for less than $1, and it is a hell of a Magic card, and it's very iconic. I could see a world where in the future just that if white wants to get more spellsy, then it becomes a bit of a hindrance. But generally speaking, you're fine paying 2. Yeah, as I mentioned, you're fine paying 2 for your swords. It's not the end of the world.
For sure. I mean, you want it in a creature-based aggressive deck, right? You're not going to put this in your blue-white control deck, but in those decks, yeah, Thalia is great because even if you're going to have some amount of non-creatures in your deck, obviously, but you're not going to be the deck that's casting multiple non-creatures in a turn or trying to. You're not casting the low impacts like Preordain is the sort of those cantrips which are like low impact ways to spend mana on non-creature spells. They're the ones that really get hosed by Thalia, right? Because you're trying to cast that plus other non-creature spells in the same turn, and Thalia just does not let you. And then, of course, there's the Storm decks, which basically just can't win with a Thalia in play.
Yeah.
Very powerful card. It is a card that's like sometimes you should board out because you play against Gruul monsters. This card isn't doing anything for you really. It is a card that you should be a little bit selective in how you draft your deck. Once you have your Thalia, you might, for example, choose to take you might want your removal spells to come in the form of creatures, right? You might be more interested in, say, a Kafar Commando versus a Disenchant or whatever. You just use the Thalia as a good tiebreaker in that respect. But it's not difficult for white aggressive decks to get a lot of their spell-based type effects on creatures at this point. Like, there's just so many good ETB creatures in those decks. And yeah, Thalia just works really well in that combat context. And it can be a real sort of groan test card for your opponent, right? Like, you're looking at your hand, you're feeling good about it, and they play a Thalia, and it's...
it's over.
Yeah, you regret all of your choices.
Like, is there a world where Thalia Garden of Thraben is like one of the winningest cards in Cube? Because like white aggressive is kind of a staple in terms of like decks that just perform basically. And Thalia's been in them ever since 2012. So has the,
yeah.
I will accept maybe like Lightning Bolt as one more, but like cards print legend in the last 2 decades, maybe Thalia's pretty high.
Yeah, for sure. I can see that. Like Thalia, Skyclave Apparition, all this stuff is just
racking up the
very strong. I do think it's like slightly less backbreaking than maybe it was in a powered cube context, maybe even it was sort of 5 years ago, just because the cube as a whole has shifted to be more creature centric than spell centric, and we just have so many powerful creatures now, and you're like, really, Thalia doesn't line up very well against your opponent playing like Lelias and Questing Beasts and that sort of card, right?
Yeah, and also when this was printed, it was a time where like other colors didn't really get like on-rate creatures. Like it took black like years to get like a 2-mana 2/2. Yeah. There's possibly a world where even when this was printed, black didn't have a 2-mana 2/2 without a downside.
That might well be true. Yeah. I mean, it's just like a little less frequently, right? As your opponent plays Thalia, you're looking at your hand of like 3 counter spells and 2 cantrips, right?
Yeah.
But it's still a banger. You should still register it in all your white aggressive decks.
I can just imagine the other mono red players playing Jackal Pup when this was printed and just weeping. Rip Jackal Pup. I love that card. All right. But all right, let's move on to another card. Let's move on to, this might be one of my favorite cards of all time. Next up, we have Faithless Looting. This is a single red for a sorcery of draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards with flashback for 2 and a red. So this is just so efficient. I really love this card. Like, I played it so much in other formats where like things like Dredge is legal. And it can be in Cube. Faithless Looting is fantastic with Dredge cards because you can bring it back to your hand and just pitch them again. But just, it's quite a lot of filtering, and it really does fill up your graveyard, especially, and this kind of, I guess, it's a card that kind of just keeps getting better as more and more cards care about the basically, as we now have like 4 Tarmogoyfs, Faithless Looting just gets better. I'll be honest with you, I stopped playing Modern when this was banned, because it kind of ruined everything I wanted to do.
Quitting the format in protest and not going back. I respect it.
Yeah. it's a super cheap cantrip, and also red doesn't normally get this type of effect. Like draw 2 then discard is huge in red. Like it's normally like everything we've seen since then has been discard and then draw, and this just giving you that extra opportunity to kind of filter. Like you're more likely to, like, if you are digging for something, you are more likely to be able to keep it with Faceless Looting than any of the other way around rummage style of effects. And it's just, yeah, and you get to do it twice as well. Yeah, I just think Faceless Looting is just it's such an innocuous card, and it's just so very good at what it does. It's also a common, so it's going to be played in every cube that can run it. It's been printed to death, so it's going to be pennies. Absolute banger. I love Faceless Looting.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Careful Study, which is the blue version of this that doesn't have flashback, already a fine card. Nothing wrong with a single mana for draw 2, discard 2. You know, gets your graveyard going, gets your mana singes going, does a lot of work for you. But the flashback is such a huge deal. Like later in the game, when you're both top decking, but one person has a Faithless Looting in the graveyard, that's a huge tiebreaker. Like you're just seeing 2 extra cards for very little cost. Yeah, still great in Vintage Cube. Rakdos Reanimator is a deck I really like, and this is one of your premium ways to put cards in your graveyard and just see a lot of new cards, right? Digging for your animates. In more mid-power level cubes, this is a great enabler for madness of all your graveyard shenanigans, powers up your goyfs. No bad words to say about Faithless Looting, really. One like gameplay tip I have on this, I feel like a lot of people just snap off their Faithless Looting on turn 1 because they have nothing else to do. And it's like, if you don't have stuff you want to discard yet, and you don't really know, like, you don't have bad cards in your hand, and you have a good play on 2 and 3, like, you are allowed to just play your mountain and not cast this. Like, just, you know what I mean? Like, just save it for a few turns. It's such a low mana cost that you'll be able to get it in a different turn. And because then you know how your hand has developed and what you're actually looking for, or you maybe have something you want to discard. And because to a certain extent, right, this sort of selection gets better the longer the game goes on, right? So yeah, I think it's sometimes you don't have to cast it at the earliest available opportunity.
I would agree. I've been guilty of doing that, and then just like, my good cards are in the bin. But let's swap from a card that you don't want to cast at your earliest opportunity to a card you do probably want to cast at your earliest possible opportunity. Next up, let's talk about Hellrider. So Hellrider is 2 red for a 3/3 creature devil with haste, and whenever a creature you control attacks, Hellrider does 1 damage to the player or planeswalker it's attacking. So this just wins games. Hellrider's kind of busted. Like, it's kind of wild that, like, basically every red 4-drop since this card has been printed has just been compared to Hellrider, and Hellrider is still there. Like, it's going to take a lot for me to cut Hellrider from my cube, because it just kills people. Like, if you have any kind of red aggressive deck in your cube, if you're playing creatures at 1, 2, and 3, especially if you have Rabble Masters at 3, which is spewing out tokens, Hellrider just kills people. It is a very stupid magic card. I guess my only complaint is it's not a goblin, but I think that's me being picky.
Yeah, I've lost to a lot of Hellriders. Hellrider's great. It just represents so much damage when you'd have that built-out board. It is, I will say, it's a kind of more high variance than some of the other red 4s, right? Like, obviously, when you're like a little bit ahead, or you have a good board, then Hellrider just kills them, right? It doesn't give them a chance to catch up, and that's great. That's valuable. It is not great once your opponent has stabilized. It doesn't really swing that back in your favor very well. If your opponent's done a good job at killing your earlier creatures, this can be a little more middle of the road. I think it is currently in my cube, and I'm thinking of cutting it. I don't know if this is sacrilege. So for example, like, you compare this to a card like Headliner Scarlet. Sure, like, the Scarlet doesn't do as much damage necessarily the turn you play it, but often it does, because the Headliner Scarlet context is 4 mana 3/3, haste. When it ETBs, your opponent's creatures can't block this turn. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you exile the top card and you can play it this turn. So Scarlet also represents a bunch of damage the turn it comes in. But if your opponent has killed your previous 2 creatures, Headliner Scarlet is still good, right? Because it's going to get in for free, and then it's going to start drawing you cards. Hellrider kind of doesn't do that much in that spot.
Yeah, I guess the Scarlet, like, drawing you your burn so you can finish off your opponent, that's quite nice.
Exactly. Like, I just feel like it's good in slightly more scenarios, right? But certainly the scenario where your deck is working well, Hellrider kills them, and that's valuable.
No, I think that's fair. I think it also, maybe one of the things that's kind of going against Hellrider is just cube design a bit at the moment. A lot of cubes, especially the more like higher power level ones like the Mikko Vintage Cube and like LSV's Cube, they're a bit less balls to the wall red aggro. We're not running as much like Goblin Guide anymore. It's like the power has kind of swapped to 3 mana with things like Broadside Bombardiers and Gut and like Lelia. That's kind of where the power, I guess, has kind of moved. And kind of like, I guess to an extent, things like Broadside Bombardiers is like sacking your tokens. So maybe you're going to have less creatures. Like Gut does, like Gut doesn't put you up on tokens. It kind of keeps your tokens at parity. It doesn't make you more, if that makes sense. So I could see a world where maybe Hellrider is being pushed out in terms of just like what red is doing now. Like red's going to gone a bit like bigger, basically. By that I mean like 3 mana rather than like 1 and 2. But like maybe that's my kind of. But like I think especially actually in budget cubes, I think Hellrider is still a phenomenal option because I'm looking at it's 60 cents or something like that. And like if you are just doing balls to the wall, my red deck is just going to kill them as quickly as possible. I think you still play Hellrider.
Yeah, no, for sure, I get that. And if you're doing a tokens thing, I think Hellrider is a more of a mono red card in some ways because it's
yes, I would agree. Yes,
it's so good when your opponent's a 10, right? Like
yeah.
You know what I mean? They and if your strategy involves playing Goblin Guides, then they're more likely to be at 10 than to be at 16, you know? And that's a really big difference for how good Hellrider is. Like, if your deck wants Fire Blast, your deck wants Hellrider.
Oh, I love it. Nice. Right, let's keep it rolling. We're swapping over to Avacyn Restored now. Next up, we have Grizzlebrand. This is 4 black, 4 blacks, for a 7/7 legendary creature demon with flying, lifelink, pay 7 life, and draw 7 cards. So, Grizzlebrand's a very dumb magic card, I think most of us know. If you get to play with this card, like, for me, Grizzlebrand is kind of synonymous with Cube. Like, even though there are cards like Archon of Cruelty and Atraxa that maybe have kind of like, there is an argument now in terms of who is at the top of the mountain. But for a long time, if you were reanimating something, it was Grizzlebrand. But when I think about like cubes and powerful cubes especially, I think of Grizzlebrand. It's one of the cards that is like, you don't get to do it anywhere else because it's like, it's banned in Commander. You don't really see it that much in like Modern or like Legacy as much, that kind of thing. Or those formats are kind of harder to get into. So like the times I have played Grizzlebrand the most is Cube, and who doesn't love drawing 7 cards and hitting your opponent with a 7/7? Like, it is phenomenal. And like I really like the tension with this card because like I've definitely kind of like I've done the thing of like, right, I've been attacked a bit, reanimate my Grizzlebrand. Haha, oh wait, I'm on 8 life. I have to wait a turn to attack. Like that level of tension and that level of like you haven't just won is very nice. But then it can still be very powerful because if you built your deck properly, which is kind of normally where I fall down with this, of like of like having loads of counter magic in my deck that I can draw with the 7 cards, or better yet, even draw the next reanimation spell if they answer Grizzlebrand the first time. That kind of stuff. Like, it's the lines of this card are just so cool, and like it is very powerful. It can be very, very oppressive, but Grizzlebrand's sick. I love Grizzlebrand.
Yeah, when you get a Grizzlebrand in play with a healthy life total, there aren't many better feelings. Just there aren't many cards in Magic where you get to draw basically. Where you get to draw so many cards without having to put in mana, right? It's like, if you draw 7, you're like, those weren't very good 7. I've still got a lot of drives. Let's draw another 7. What could go wrong?
Exactly.
Yeah, no, it's Grizzlebrand's great. Grizzlebrand is, I think, like synonymous to the cube, the powered cube, the high power cube experience, I think. kind of the for many years the gold standard of things you reanimate, right? And I think still, yeah, I think you can certainly have arguments about like whether it's better or not than like Archon or Atraxa. I'd probably have those two slightly ahead. But Gristlebrand feels more powerful
Yes,
when
it
you
does.
do it.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
you feel like a powerful wizard when you have a Gristlebrand in play, and it's good stuff.
Yeah, I love Big Grizzle Daddy. Yeah, you are right. Like it captures the feeling of doing something broken when you get a Grizzlebrand in play. Like I know that Archon and Atraxa, there is that conversation there, but kind of I'm not saying they're more efficient and just good at what they do. Because like you can whiff off Grizzlebrand. You could pay 7 life to draw like 5 lands and 2 things you don't care about. Like that is definitely a thing that can happen. But just when it works, it really works. I love it.
Yeah. No, it's sick. The only thing that mildly annoys me about Gristlebrand actually is that I feel like it was very obviously meant to cost 7 mana. And then they decided it was too broken.
I've never looked at that, but yeah, I see that. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's a 7/7 with pay 7, draw 7. It was obviously meant to be a 7/7 for 7, and then so I was like, this is a bit too castable.
Yeah, they can never cast this. Yeah. Or maybe just 3 and 5 black symbols would look like, or it would just look weird or something like that.
Maybe they should have just made it 7 black symbols.
I would have been fine with that. That would have been sick. Yeah, do that.
I think that would have been cool.
Yeah, do that. Yeah, okay, yeah. Modern Horizons 4, print us a fixed Grizzlebrand.
Yeah.
Nice.
Gristlebrand reignited or something.
All right. We're sticking with Avacyn Restored and we're sticking with black cards. I can't believe it took them this long to print an effect like this, but next up we have Blood Artist. 1 black for an 0/1 creature vampire. When Blood Artist or another creature dies, target player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So this did follow on from Falconwrath Noble, which is like a bigger version of this effect, but that costs 4 mana. This costs 2. It's just so cheap and just so like it effectively. This effectively made the Aristocrat deck possible. This kind of effectively like this level of win con just didn't exist before Avacyn Restored, before Innistrad block, when this effect was printed. Like yes, we had things like Goblin Bombardment where you kind of you sack a creature and ping them out, but like that required you to control the creature. This is when it or any creature, including your opponent's creatures. Now, like in Modern Magic, we have the Zulaport Cutthroat style of cards, which deal damage to multiple opponents. So it works. So it scales for commander, but this triggers off of any creature dying. Like this could be one of the more impactful cards instead, just because of all of them. This one just brought about a whole archetype that didn't exist before, and especially for Cube. Like I know Aristocrats is not it's not there right now in higher powered level cubes or like powered cubes, but this is an uncommon, and like in any more budget cube, Aristocrats is a staple and Blood Artist is a slam dunk, and in Peasant Cube, Blood Artist is a staple, and so are those archetypes. Yeah, this is a very, very iconic card.
Yeah, for sure. I think we often see like we get a lot of sort of Blood Artist variants at this point, right? But I think you could still make a reasonable argument for original Blood Artist being the best one, because I think triggering off your opponent's stuff is a huge deal. It's quite tempting to always evaluate this card's like you're in the scenario where you're really doing the thing and you have sack outlets and stuff. But there are also just so many games where like you have your stupid 1/1s that you make in your sacrifice deck and you don't have a sack outlet. You just play a Blood Artist. It's like impossible for your opponent to kill you by attacking you because you just line up some medium blocks and like, you know, when you block like their 3/3 with 3 of your 1/1s and everything dies, like they take 4 and you gain 4. Like that's huge. And then you just do a bit more chump blocking and then you can afford to take hits off the other creatures. And at some point, it's like, yeah, they've been attacking me all game, but somehow they're on like 6 and I'm on 18, so I guess I attack them now. Yeah, no, the card's great. Like, obviously, you know, it's no one, it dies to a stiff freeze, but it's if they don't answer it, Blood Artist is a lot of work. And obviously, it's part of the range is also sometimes you are doing the whole thing and you do have good sack outlets and you can just kill your opponent on the spot, and that's great too.
Yeah, Blood Artist is it's very, very good. I think nowadays I don't think it's been fully pushed out by Marionette Apprentice. That's the 1 black for a 1/2 with Fabricate 1, which means you either put a counter on it or you make a servo. And it has whenever another creature or artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. So there's, like, for creature decks, that is significantly worse than Blood Artist, but it kind of has a bit of play and synergy with, like, artifact decks sacking treasure, that kind of stuff. But just, I mean, in lower powered level cubes and in peasant cubes, just run both. Like, they're very, very good. And there is still room, like, and there will be room for Blood Artist in cube for quite a while. Like, are you in black? Are creatures dying? Do you need a bit of reach? It's 2 mana. It's so cheap.
Yeah. I mean, I think, it's reasonable to argue that the offenses could be better because getting spotted for 1/1 is such a big deal, right? But
yeah,
like, it doesn't gain you for life. Like, Blood Artist just keeps you alive so well.
Right, we're sticking with Avacyn Restored, but we are going up in the mana value quite a bit here. We have the biggest piggers next. Next up, we have Craterhoof Behemoth. This is 5 green for a 5/5 creature beast with haste, and when it enters, creatures you control gain trample and get +X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. So, how did green decks win before this, James? Like, what was mono green doing before you could natural order into a Craterhoof? What were you doing? Like, this is just, again, like, there's a world now where this is now considered more of a commander card, but 4 years, like a solid 10 years after this was printed, this is kind of what effectively green decks were doing. Like, play your dorks, play your natural order, or play your Gaia's Cradle, make a bunch of mana, cast a Craterhoof, and win. That's kind of the... maybe it's not as maybe this is another one that kind of opened up an archetype. But yeah, like, what was green doing before this, James? I have no idea.
Oh, I don't know. It was before my time. I assume they just, like, had some grizzly bears and attacked with them. Yeah, no, Craterhoof's messed up. Like, there has been a shift away from that sort of mono green ramp in a lot of cubes. Go back and listen to one of our old episodes about this. But if you are doing the big green ramp stuff, Craterhoof is the best top end, and it's not the best top end in the way that we might say, oh, Archon's the best reanimation target. Like, Archons, then Atraxa and Gristleband are all really good. Like, the top end for green is Craterhoof, huge gap, everything else. Because basically everything else gives them a turn.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything else is like, you cast it, maybe get some value, you pass the turn, then next turn you can probably win. Craterhoof just kills them dead on the spot. It doesn't matter what's in their hand. Like, it's... You need shockingly few creatures to kill them with a Craterhoof Behemoth. I feel like whenever you look at it and think, oh, I wonder if Craterhoof kills them, and then you realize they go to like -15 every time you do the maths, you know? Yeah, Craterhoof's insane. If you can get there and you have a decent number of creatures, Craterhoof will win you the game pretty easily.
I remember when I started playing Commander, like, we used to try and do the math with this, and it's just like, don't do the math.
Yeah.
Do you have more than 10 creatures you've won? Don't worry about it. Yeah. It's fine. Just assume it's over. Yeah, Craterhoof is a busted magic card. All right, we have 2 to talk about next. One is from... actually, both of these are from Avacyn Restored. We have next Zealous Conscripts, which is 4 and red for a 3/3 creature human warrior with haste, and when it enters, gain control of the target permanent until end of turn. Untap that permanent, it gains haste until end of turn. And Restoration Angel, which is 3 and a white for a 3/4 angel with flash, flying, and when it enters, you may exile target non-angel creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under your control. So individually, these are both powerful cards. Like, Zealous Conscripts can steal something. It can, like, I've stolen games with this by taking their blocker, hitting them with those 2. That's pretty good. Restoration Angel is also very good in like a flicker deck. I'm assuming it goes infinite with something, probably the cat.
Kiki-Jiki.
That's where I was getting onto. And that's kind of the effect that these 2 had on Cube is their pairing with Kiki-Jiki the Mirror Breaker. The big goblin that says tap, make a copy of target creature. Probably you control. Kiki-Jiki also importantly has haste. These both reset Kiki-Jiki. the conscripts untaps it, Restoration Angel flickers it, it comes in, you copy these creatures with Kiki Jiki, and you end up with infinite of them, and then you win. And I would imagine that deck might have already sort of existed with with maybe some of the untapper creatures, but just getting this level of density in one go must have been really big for the archetype in Cube.
Yeah, for sure. And crucially, both pretty playable cards, even if you don't have Kiki Jiki, right? Like, especially Resto. Resto was just like a good card for a lot of white decks for a long time. But it's the point where the only downside of Resto for a long time was that it was kind of the only good 4-mana flash card in white, so you always knew when they had it.
Okay,
Like, it's very suspicious passing with 4 mana up. But that's kind of less true now, right? Wandering Emperor and that sort of stuff. But yeah, but Resto is great, right? It can fizzle their removal spells. It can re-trigger your ETBs. It can just be a surprise blocker. I mean, it can be 2 surprise blockers, right? You flash it in, you flicker one of your tapped things that's now untapped block, and you have 2 blockers they didn't know about. Yeah, super strong card. Zealous, yeah, probably I'd say is less likely you play Zealous without Kiki than that you'd play Resto without Kiki, but I certainly have done it. As you say, it does just steal games. It can also steal Planeswalkers, which is really nice.
Can it?
Yeah.
Oh wow, I've not. Okay, that's vibes. I've never done that, but that's cool. That's good to know.
Yeah. You can wait till their Planeswalker gets up to ultimate, and then steal and ultimate their Planeswalker. It's kind of cracked. Yeah, like obviously 5 mana is a lot, but it can just be such a huge amount of damage out of nowhere. So, but yeah, it can be a really strong card.
Yeah, I think in terms of including them in your cube, though, I think you are probably only they probably only get slots nowadays if you are doing Kiki Jiki Spencer Twin stuff. I think Restoration Angel is a fine card, but I think because of it being synonymous with that archetype, there is a world where it could be a bit of a trap, including Restoration Angel. Because if someone sees it and doesn't know your cube, they might assume that Kiki Jiki's in there. That could be something that exists. Like if you that could be something that warrants a conversation. And there are other like flicker things that you can do if you specifically want a flicker target, I guess. But it is a very efficient card, like Restoration Angel. It is very efficient and very good, especially in a world where there's ETBs like this, like Resto Angeling your Solitude, that kind of stuff is very strong, or Grief, God forbid, is very strong. But yeah, I could just see that maybe from a cube design point of view, maybe you would want them more, at least if you're doing the Kiki Jiki combo stuff.
I can see Zealous being a bit of a trap if people assume you have Kiki, but I think Resto is like fine if you're doing a blink thing. I don't know. Tell them to read for Cube Cobra. They should have done their homework.
Yeah. Cool. We have a couple more cards that we want to spend a bit of time chatting about just because of how awesome they are. And this could be... There's so many iconic cards from this set. I'm just going to use the phrase again. This could be one of the most iconic cards from this set, James. It's definitely one that people think about when they think about the draft environment, and that's Spider Spawning. This is 4 and a green for a sorcery that says create a 1/2 green spider creature token with reach for each creature card in your graveyard, and has flashback for 6 and a black. So this is possibly another one that kind of like spawned its own archetype, like the self-mill style of deck, be rewarded for a number of things in your graveyard. Like, it also might not shock a lot of people to know that I have played a lot of Spider Spawning. I've played it in a lot of decks. I've made a lot of tokens. I would not say I've made the most tokens, unlike Gnaw to the Bone, where I've gained the most life. But yeah, I've made a lot of spiders with this card, James. So this was one that kind of like in the draft format as well, kind of like it's probably the card in the archetype people think about when they think about Innistrad draft. It's kind of like, oh, it's the one where you can do Spider Spawning. But like, it wasn't a well-known archetype when it came out. Like, it took players months to kind of get on board with this, because like effectively this is kind of like the weird build-around card of the set. They're kind of like it's now more common that there's kind of like a 1 or 2 cards that kind of like a not really synergize with like or kind of like a build-around card you need to kind of commit to. But this was like one of the first examples of them doing this, and kind of like I love Spider Spawning. Like it shows up a bunch in like this is effectively what Peasant Golgari is doing. It is doing this. It is doing Spider Spawning basically, and Spider Spawning and Spider Spawning adjacent things is what a Peasant Cube is doing in Golgari, and I love that. Whether it's good enough in like lower powered level, maybe. maybe there's some good payoffs, and like I could see this just getting a place. Like my first draft of my higher powered level cube had spider spawning in. I had it as a green card because I was being greedy with my Golgari section, but that's a separate conversation. But yeah, I love spider spawning.
Yeah, spider spawning is great. I think the thing in drafts, like I think people realized, you could mill yourself and make some spiders with a spider spawning card, and that would be cool. I think it took people a while to realize how deep you could go with it, because there was things like Memory's Journey, which is I think like 1 and a blue, and you can flash back for a green, and it lets you shuffle some number of cards from your graveyard back into library. And you had like a couple of those, and you had ways to buy from exile, I think, even. And you could basically set up where you dump your whole deck into your graveyard and keep putting spider spawning on top, and then and you just cast spider spawning every turn and create absurd numbers of 1/2s with reach, which initially stop you from dying, and then the second and third ones start killing them. Yeah, phenomenal cube card as well. I feel like when I see spider spawning in a cube, it's I want to draft it, and it also gives me confidence that I'm going to enjoy the cube. Yeah, I'd say like low to peasant cube, like low power level, low to mid power level cubes. I think spider spawning's a pretty cool build around. I was playing like a Sultai Graveyards 2-player cube the other day, and which had some good spider spawning stuff going on. I think it can go in quite a few places. Yeah, like if you have a strong Golgari self mill theme, spider spawning's very good. You just have to make sure you actually have a lot of creatures in your deck. It's very easy to build decks which you're like, yeah, I can dump my whole deck into my graveyard.
I have 4 creatures.
6 creatures. Yeah,
exactly. yeah. And this oddly has got better with things like Stitcher Supplier and other things that kind of like other creatures that mill you efficiently. This has obviously got better and just gone up in power level. But like, yeah, it does have a ceiling because it is a 5-mana card and then a 7-mana card. So yeah, we're not here for like super high power level cubes, but like it's an iconic card. If you were to run this in like your lower powered level cubes, your budget cubes, or your peasant cubes, people like this card. It feels cool to do. So yeah, sleeve up a spider spawning. The last card that we're going to touch on in a bit more detail is another very unique effect that's kind of like really come to the fore a bit more in the last couple of years as it's kind of like been power correct. But like Laboratory Maniac is an awesome card. It's 2 and a blue for a 2/2 creature human wizard. It has the rules text: if you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, you win the game. That is so. Alternate win cons are cool and fun. Like obviously, like this has kind of got a bit more, like more eyes on it with things like Thassa's Oracle being printed, which is kind of taken over a lot of formats. But like if in Cube you are trying to do that kind of package, the win with no cards in your deck, you need more than one effect because you might not open the Thassa's Oracle. Labman is one of the next ways of winning. Like there's this and there's the Jace Wielder of Mysteries. If you're trying to do that kind of deck where you're trying to win with no cards in your library, I think you run all of them. You just need it. Like do you like Doomsday? Cool. You're probably still sleeving up a Labman. Like I'm assuming James kind of like back in the like when this was printed, like Demonic Consultation was legal. So Demonic Consultation, Doomsday, Labman, that still kind of slaps. Like you could probably still lose to that in like 2024.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's more setup from the Foracle, right? Because the Foracle, you play a Foracle, you empty your library, you win. The Labman you have to draw into the empty library, which you can obviously be pass the turn, do it on your draw step, but that's very risky because if they kill the Labman, then you instead lose by drawing into an empty library. But I also think in a lot of ways it's cooler. Like,
it is cooler. I'm just saying it. Yeah.
It is cooler.
It's more impressive.
Yeah. And I've actually like just tinkering around with slightly low power level cubes. I've had a couple where I've had Labman, but I have not had Thassa's Oracle because I was like, no, Thassa's Oracle is too easy in this cube. The Labman is perfect. It's the perfect amount of setup. And yeah, it's such a unique effect. Yeah, I really like the card. I think it's really well designed. Like it's the right. Like it should be like 3 mana, so it's not it's not free to put into play, and it's a 2/2. You can kill it, and that gives it some jeopardy. I think it is they didn't make it too easy. I kind of feel like Foracle makes it a bit too easy. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Foracle. I will jam it in powerful cubes, but I think in with more like mid-power level cubes, sometimes like no, I want Labman instead.
Yeah, I kind of feel if I lose to a Thassa's Oracle, it's like, okay, cool, fair enough. If I lose to a Labman, I shake their hand.
Yeah.
I'm much more impressed.
A man of taste, I see.
Yeah. Well done. Cool. Yeah, so that's I think it for kind of like cards we're going to go into in a bit of detail. But there's so many other cool cards in this set. Like like cards like Burning Vengeance and Secrets of the Dead that kind of reward you for like casting cards from your graveyard. That is a cool archetype that I think doesn't like it's. There was some Warhammer cards that kind of sort of work with it, but maybe this is like that's definitely like a peasant type of thing that I think could be quite cool. Lingering Souls is just a very, very effective card. It just makes you some bodies on a sorcery. It has flashback. It just goes in so many decks. Like, yeah, Young Wolf is a 1/1 with Undying for a single green. Staple in Pauper Cube for such a long time. Like when I played Pauper, I believe me, I put some Rancors on some Young Wolves. That's how you win some games. Past in Flames is an awesome way of kind of like rewarding the spells deck, just getting your spells back. You have Delver of Secrets, iconic card in so many formats. I feel people tried it in Cube for more than it was probably worth it.
It's not very good in Cube. Yeah. It doesn't work. It's so hard to have the density to actually make this card good in Cube. I feel like this is almost like a classic Cube trap,
Yeah, it doesn't flip as much as you want. And then another card that was kind of synonymous with the draft environment, Travel Preparations, 1 green for a sorcery. Put a counter on each of up to 2 target creatures with flashback for 1 white. Like, that is a lot of value off of 1 card. Like, that must still see, like, I could imagine, like, if you're doing any kind of counters, that still sees Pauper Cube play. And then you have Gravecrawler. Like, this is just a cool little recursive card. It's a single black for 2/1 in black. That's not something that black generally got at that point. Yes, it can't block, you don't care. And then it has you can cast Gravecrawler from your graveyard as long as you control a zombie. I'm assuming this has got better recently, isn't it? With like Forsaken Miner or something like that, James? Is there combos?
Yes, there were already combos, and the combos have got better, I would say. So the most of the combos revolve around if you just have another zombie in play, and then you can have a way to sack this and generate a mana.
Right.
Like if you can sack this for a black mana, then you can have a black mana to recast it. You're getting a bunch of death triggers. You can win the game from there. The new card that sort of turbocharged this a bit was the Warren Soul Trader.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Which lets you sack a creature to make a treasure, which you can obviously use to recast it, and as a zombie itself. It costs you a life, so you have to have something else that's going on with it, but you really don't need a lot. It's nice. It's like a black, cheap, aggressive creature, but then also just has these accidental combo potential, which is quite nice.
But yeah, like there's just awesome cards all up and down. And like those are the main ones I think we wanted to touch on for Cube, but like for other formats, like I love me a Grim. There's just so many sweet cards for this. But like there is another part of like it wasn't just the cards and some of the mechanics that are iconic with Innistrad and have made an impact on Cube. It's also the set itself. So Innistrad is one of the main sets, along with Ravnica, where people have built cubes around a certain plane. Like you see people build cubes set on Innistrad. And it's because they like the theming, because they like it so much. And like this is generally the first, if I'm honest, like this is more of a thing where people did this, because the reason why this kind of started in a lot of cases is like this and Zendikar, which I think came like a year before this, were such iconic draft environments that people enjoyed. They wanted to recreate that draft environment. And that's where things like set cubes really came to the fore. Like, yes, they were like they existed beforehand, but kind of like in terms of people I know personally with like set cubes, I think we know someone with a Innistrad cube, we know someone with a Karn's cube, and I have a Dominaria cube. For one listener out there, I'm going to say the words original Dominaria, but like it was a set that people loved so much they wanted to draft again, and kind of like And like a set cube is basically a cube that someone has made to recreate the draft format. Basically, the way you make it. I'll put a link down in the description below to a video where I explain it in more detail. But kind of the gist is, you remove like the 10 worst cards from the set that don't really synergize with anything. You take 3 commons, 3 uncommons, 1 rare, and 1 mythic of every other card in the set. You then shuffle up your commons, you shuffle up your uncommons, you shuffle up your rares and your mythics, and you collate them into 15 card packs with 10 commons, 3 uncommons, 1 rare. Normally it would be 1 land in a pack, but with Innistrad, one thing we haven't mentioned is that every pack had a flip card, so you could have a separate pile for flip cards. And basically you recreate packs, and that gives you an unlimited amount of redraftability for this set. And like, it's probably something that's probably difficult to do like now because Innistrad came out so long ago. But like, I did this with Dominaria. I've seen people do it with like Lord of the Rings. Basically, like there are sellers who will sell you like all of 1 commons and all of 1 like a set of commons or a set of uncommons, and most of those aren't really too expensive. It's something you can definitely do with sets, and like Innistrad was one of the first sets where people really wanted to do that and recreate that experience. Like,
yeah, for sure. And I think people also have built a lot of cubes, right? Which Innistrad, so original Innistrad block plus the more recent Innistrad block, which got Shadows over Innistrad, Midnight Hunt, and maybe a third set that I can't remember. But just everything from the Innistrad plane in a cube, basically, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because one of the things with like probably more than other sets, because like with like Ravnica, every time we go to Ravnica, each guild has a different like mechanic. Like you have Dredge in one set, you have Scavenge in another set. With Innistrad, they've kind of like there's always been vampires, there's always been werewolves. So kind of like the tribal aspect of things can go across all the different sets, and then kind of you sprinkle in some of the cool things like Flashback just goes in any kind of graveyardy synergy, and that's a mechanic they have brought back in other sets. So kind of like, yeah, it's one of the things with Innistrad. It does feel kind of self-contained, if that makes sense. That's one of the reasons why, yeah, it also works in terms of themed cubes, and also like it's what we're filming this in the middle of October. It's spooky season, James. Ooh, like people love spooktacular times, and Innistrad really does give it to that. Like, I'll put another link as well. If anyone's not seen it, Lucky Paper have a resource where basically they do a cube map, and basically it kind of displays cubes based on like what's in them in terms of like how close they are, and kind of like you generally have like what it basically looks like is you have this big clump of like powered, unpowered, kind of like your stock cubes. Then you kind of have these little like satellites, and kind of like you have like Ravnica themed cubes and like Lord of the Rings cubes over here, and then you have this fairly substantial circle or like patch that is like Innistrad set cubes, horror themed cubes. Like it's probably one of the bigger, like I'm going to say niche, but it's a very popular way of interacting with cube, and kind of like a lot of this started with Innistrad, and that's one of the reasons we want to talk about it or kind of reminisce about it today, is because if it wasn't for like how popular, if it wasn't for like how good the play experience was, how good the theming was, we probably wouldn't have as popular a set cube theme or a like themed cube type of environments that we see today.
Sorry, I'm just clicking around on the cube map thing now because I hadn't seen it before. It's cool. Yeah.
It's sick, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think because the themes work and it's flavorful enough, right? It has that potential for a that you can attach your cube to the theme, and the theme runs through all the sets on the Innistrad plane really well. I think more so than is true for most other planes, really.
But yeah, overall, I think one of the most impactful and one of the coolest blocks ever. I know we went back to it relatively recently, but I think Innistrad's one of those sets where Innistrad's one of those environments where kind of like if they announce we're going back to it, I'm kind of still here for it. There's still a lot more they can do there, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's definitely space for new things in Innistrad. I guess it's been a few years. We could get back there, I think, before too long.
Isn't it still in standard, James? I don't actually know. No, it could be. No, it's not actually. No, it's not. So it must be at least 3 years. That's not too bad. But yeah, awesome set. Really fun. There's so many cool cards that I like from this. I have been thinking of building like another cube at some point. Maybe a spooky cube is the way to go. I will put some link down to some more famous ones. Like I know Ryan Overturf has a horror themed cube. I think he split it into 2 now to make it a bit more modular, but I'll put a link down to that in the description below, along with the Lucky Paper link where you can just search for Innistrad cubes and you can see a whole bunch of them. They'll all be there.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a spooky cube up on Magic Online at the moment.
Oh, is that?
I've not drafted it. It could be Rhino of Turf's one.
If it's
I'm not
called
sure.
the Spooky Cube, then it probably is that one because that's what it's called.
Cool.
Nice. But let's move on to our last topic of the day. Let's talk about what have we been playing. James, you've been playing a bunch of Dustmon Limited recently. How have you been finding it?
Oh, I sure have. It's great. I need to. You're gonna have to give me 5 minutes to wax local about this format. It's phenomenal. Yeah, I was drafting a bunch partly in preparation for there's an Arena Open last weekend, but also just because the format's great. It's such a nice change from we've had a lot of formats recently where it felt very sort of linear. Like if you're in this 2-color pair, you are doing this thing, and all the decks are kind of the same. Here, there's so much breadth because the themes are like distinct and synergistic, but they overlap enough where there's incentive to splash around, and you can be doing different things within this, like meaningfully different themes within the same 2-color pairs. And I think that to me just makes drafting much more rewarding. Like it's actually I think a lot more cube-like than most limited sets are. And the themes all play out really well. Like there aren't really a ton of misses. I don't think survival's great, but mostly the themes play out well, and they overlap nicely. Things like the Manifest Dread stuff has its own payoffs, but then also plays really well with Delirium because you're dumping a bunch of cards in your graveyard, which also then leads into the Enchantress stuff because because enchantment's another type for your Delirium, and there's a ton of good fixing, which means you get splash about a bit, which means you just have more possibilities in a draft, right? When 3 and 4 color combinations are open to you, and the themes are not necessarily confined to 2 colors. Like what I drafted in the Arena Open, actually, I ended up drafting a Abzan Reanimator deck, which I think Reanimator is being kind of slept on at the moment because. Partly, I think because people look at the 17 lands data and stuff and they see, oh, well, white-black's for Reanimator color and white-black's doing really badly, so Reanimator must be bad. And I don't think this is true at all. I think your Reanimator deck just isn't supposed to be straight white-black because white doesn't really... Your Reanimator deck has to be a control deck, and the white cards tend to lean aggressive, so they just don't add a ton. But I think like Abzan or Esper Reanimator both play really well. I've drafted quite a few of both of those, and I think they both play great. Like you're not sort of a all-in combo deck, you're a control deck that sometimes gets to 7 mana and casts your thing, and maybe sort of like 60% of the time you find a way to put it in the graveyard and reanimate it, and the rest of the time you just cast it, and both plans work well. See the Abzan one also, you get green so you can eventually ramp into your thing, but that's definitely not necessary. Although my Arena Open deck sadly went 2-2 and didn't get into the monies, but that was a bit more all in because I had Valgavoth, which is the
is that not like
the big demon, which is like 9 mana, so you're not really casting that one. But you do actually just win the game when you put it into play. They can't really kill it, and it's a 9/9 flying life.
Ward sacrifice 3 non-land permanents. Yeah, that's a ward cost.
Yeah. It's tough, that
Jesus.
one.
Okay.
That ward was not paid many times. But yeah, no, there's a ton of breadth in this format. I've been liking Esper, I've been liking Abzan. All the green Delirium decks work well. There's a Gruul one that leans a bit more aggressive, or there's a green-black one, which I find often you end up sort of Sultai, which is more like Dirtly Delirium stuff. Their black works well. I think that one is a bit more distinct, and you get a lot of cards that other people just don't value at all. I find that's open a lot at the moment, actually, so I think that's quite a good place to be. Red-white has a good aggressive deck. Blue-white does good enchantressy stuff. It all works. A lot of these things you can combine together. If you've not drafted much of a format, I'd recommend giving it a try.
Yeah, I just really haven't had the time to play too much of it, but the stuff I have played, I have enjoyed. Like, yeah, it's a graveyard set. I really like Innistrad. I really like this. Yeah, I really like what I've played with Dustmon. I also been surprised that like I actually quite liked rooms. I think they actually work quite well. Like, it's just like it's kind of like a mana sink, but it's actually kind of decent. I think. Like I haven't really explored like the rooms deck, but I would like the alt or like with the alt win con where you win the game if you've opened like a bunch of rooms. But just like as value cards, I think they're pretty solid. And like I think I said this to you immediately after pre-release. Like, I think I just love any set that has land cyclers in them.
Yeah. Land cyclers are good, especially when you actually have time to use a land cycler. Right? We've had some where there are land cyclers, but you could never spend 2 mana to cycle. Which, I mean, obviously isn't like your first choice of things to do on turn 2 in any set, but yeah, the land cyclers are like actually playable in this one, which is good. I agree with you about rooms. I think they play really nicely. It's a nice, like, get something up front, get something else later, delayed value. You don't run out of stuff to do. And I think the rooms deck is real, actually. It's I think it's quite dependent on getting at least 1 or 2 of the blue-red gold card is very good for it. Smoky Lounge.
Right.
Which is like the red half is like, I think 2 in a red, and at the beginning of each of your first main phases, you get 2 mana that you can only spend on rooms. And then the other side, you make an XX flyer where X is the number of rooms that are unlocked. And that card really like turbocharges that deck because you just get so much mana for your rooms.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah. I need to, like, fortunately, I think I have a bit of time with this one. Like, I know there's Foundations coming out, but I don't think that's going to replace like as the main draft set on Arena until like the next set the next main set isn't until start of next year. So yeah, have some time to get some games with this. I do like it, and yeah, I'm glad to know that kind of the games are slightly longer, and that because it's going to be around for a bit of time, it sounds like a bit more of a deeper format. So that is fun.
Yeah, for sure. Really nice break from Bloom Pro. I did not enjoy that one. But each to their own.
So we're coming to the end of the episode. Just one last bit of housekeeping before we get you all out of here. So it's coming to the end of the year already. Dear God, how time flies. We are getting prepared our end to do our end of year award ceremony, the Golden MTGs, the most prestigious magical night in all of Magic. Do keep an eye out. We'll be posting the voting form to everyone soon. We want to hear from you. We want your input. The Academy must be consulted, and we must find out what were the hits, what were the misses from 2024. We'll make sure to keep it civil, and I'm sure we'll have a good time. But that's where we're going to leave it for today. James, thank you very much. That was awesome.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, I do. Sometimes I like just talking about cool things that I like, and this was definitely one of those episodes. So yeah, thank you for that. And yeah, and thank you all very much for listening. Do please give the podcast a 5-star review, tell a friend, all that good stuff. Until next time, it's goodbye from me, and it's goodbye from James, and we'll see you all soon. Goodbye.